the students of Gilgil Day Secondary School, one of the biggest day schools in Gilgil. This is the third cohort this session that is visiting Parliament, and I've just spoken to them. Their motto is knowledge is power. So I hope that they can absorb as much as they come to this chamber, and that it will help them even in their future endeavors. And welcome all the others that are in the galleries. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Wangwe, followed by Madam Njeri, MP for Kirinyaga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to join my colleagues in supporting the BPS for 2025-2026. Honorable Speaker, this BPS identifies itself, and I want to quote the citation, as being consolidating gains under bottom-up economic transformation agenda for inclusive green growth. Honorable Speaker, you cannot look at the consolidation without looking at the previous years. And I want to look at what happens into the previous years, Honorable Speaker, vis-a-vis the budget that they've given us, or the ceiling that they've given us. This BPS, Honorable Speaker, suggests that the budget for 2025-26 shall be 4.2631 trillion. When you look at the analysis of that, Honorable Speaker, in terms of recurrent at 1.730 trillion, and development of 758 billion, Honorable Speaker, and rework it out in terms of percentage, you find that, Honorable Speaker, 69.5% shall go into recurrent, and 30.45% shall go into development. Honorable Speaker, that means we are not doing very well in terms of what we collect and spend in terms of recurrent and development. We need to really work towards making sure that percentage reverses. Recurrent can be 30, but we use more of what we collect to develop our country, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, looking at the theme of the 2025-26 BPS, vis-a-vis that figure, Honorable Speaker, and then you look at how the government has apportioned the expenditure, Honorable Speaker, I just want to look at the issue that how they've allocated the resources, Honorable Speaker, in terms of health and in terms of roads, Honorable Speaker. Health is getting a very small percentage, Honorable Speaker, whereas we look at the whole issue, where although health is devolved, Honorable Speaker, but what remains up in the national government should also be substantively supported. Honorable Speaker, look at what has been put on education at 28.3%. Yes, most of it could be going to the TSC to employ teachers or support teachers. But what happens? Are we looking at opening up when it comes to the budget, Honorable Speaker, so that we look at individual expenditure of this amount that we are proposing to give them as a ceiling? That is something that, Honorable Speaker, I want to propose, that let it be laid bare. Let it not just come as a consolidated figure when it comes to the final estimates, Honorable Speaker. Let us open it, give it itemize it all along so that we can be able, Honorable Speaker, to know what is it. And finally, Honorable Speaker, on the allocation, I want to look at the issue of allocation in terms of agriculture. When you look at this BPS, Honorable Speaker, it's appreciating itself in the macroeconomic framework for the 2025 BPS as agriculture being one of the substantive issues that the government is relying on to project the 5.3% growth in GDP. So, Honorable Speaker, if they are looking at the growth of 5.3 from the 4.6% in 2024, and you look at the allocation of resources in agriculture, rural and urban development, Honorable Speaker, at 3.0%, then, Honorable Speaker, we are not talking the same language. What it means, Honorable Speaker, we are simply trying to say we will use agriculture to achieve the GDP of 5.3, but we are not supporting agriculture in itself, Honorable Speaker, in the final budget so that we achieve that. What are they speaking in terms of gaining the 5.3, Honorable Speaker? They are saying they are relying on favorable weather condition and implementation of the better. How about if the weather condition changes, Honorable Speaker? We want to look at it like, let us have resources put into agriculture so that, Honorable Speaker, when we speak in terms of achieving the GDP of 5.3, we speak to that and also push for the resources to achieve that. However, Honorable Speaker, there are good things that, Honorable Speaker, this BPS is talking about, and we must applaud the government for what they are able to do. For example, Honorable Speaker, they are relying on the issue of inflation, Honorable Speaker, which we are all feeling. Inflation has come down, Honorable Speaker, in February, compare itself from 6.3% in February 2024 to 3.5% in February 2025. That's something we have felt, and it's something which is all across everyone, driven by lower fuel and food prices. Honorable Speaker, it is something which we really appreciate and say, let the government continue driving the economy at that low inflation rate so that all Kenyans, Honorable Speaker.
Give him an additional 1 minute to wrap up.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for that addition. All Kenyans want to look at that inflation being maintained at that lower number of 3.5%. There is equal, Honorable Speaker, a positive look. When you look at, Honorable Speaker, the current account deficit, this is a good thing for the whole economy. We are doing very well in terms of current account deficit in overall, Honorable Speaker, from the 4.4% of GDP in December 2023, Honorable Speaker, to now a paltry 3.6% as we stand now. That means, Honorable Speaker, when we now compare ourselves to the overall balance of payment, and our current account deficit, Honorable Speaker, is that low, it means we are likely to have sufficient amount of resources to hold should there be a problem in terms of Forex, Honorable Speaker. Our Forex position is good, and we are likely to move on. So therefore, Honorable Speaker, this being the macroeconomic issues that the government is relying on to drive the BPS of 2025, I look at it with lots of hope, and I want to encourage that the government goes in that direction so that, Honorable Speaker, all of us are going to be happy to live in this country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support the BPS 2024, 25, 26.
Jerry Maina.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Allow me to appreciate the BPS report and commend the good work done by the team. Honorable Speaker, as we agitate for equal distribution of resources, we must also ensure that we hold leaders who are given taxpayers' money accountable. Honorable Speaker, a very unfortunate photo that I saw trending, and I will not name the county, but it is one of the ASAL counties, of a child who was drinking muddy water in a jug. That child did not make any application to be born in that county. As a child who was born in Kirinyaga County, a child born in Kisumu. We know very well that we have the Equalization Fund, 12 years plus of devolution, because water is now primarily a devolved function. What do we have to show for it? As members of parliament, we must ensure that even as we push for more funding for counties and equal distribution of resources, that the same is applied, because this money is a taxpayer's money. There is no single member of parliament or elected leader who spends their own funds to do or rather engage in development agenda for their respective constituencies or counties. Honorable Speaker, this House must also be accountable and must not absolve itself of accountability in regard to the distribution of the national budget. We were treated to a very melodramatic presentation yesterday where accusations were leveled against the budget committee and the leadership of the budget committee. But we all sit as members of parliament, and we are able to authenticate and even question and query the budget statements that are passed on the floor of this House. So when I see members trying to bedevil each other individually because of perhaps political inclinations, political realignments will come and go. Perhaps maybe Honorable Kenan and I will be on the same side in the next government. So it is very important for us to quit from bedeviling the now, I don't know whether to say former, chair of budget, Honorable NDINDI. And he has not been chair budget forever. He was chair budget for, I think, 2.5 years. He was a member of parliament for Kiharu prior to that. Members of this House have actually gone to his constituency to benchmark on the work that he is doing for the people of Kiharu constituency. And it is the duty of every member of parliament to sit here when proceedings are going on, when the national cake is being shared, to ensure that the people they represent on this floor get what they are owed by the government, because we are all taxpayers, Honorable Speaker. And we must also ensure that when the president is making declarations, they are declarations that will actually impact on the Kenyan people. I saw a request apparently for a machine that will be making 1 million chapatis a day. We must be able, as members of parliament, to differentiate rhetoric from the needs of the Kenyan people. Because at the end of the day, in 2027, we will be held accountable by the people who elected us here. So even as we have all these other overriding interests and party positions and whatnots, let us think about the Kenyan people. What do we need to match so that they can feel that they are equally represented? I also want to appreciate the recent amendments on the public audit finance, because I have seen an allocation to the Committee on Security, and I have seen that there's a 32 billion that will be allocated to NIS for covert operations. All these monies must be accounted for, and they must be channeled in a manner that will benefit the Mama Mboga in Turkana, Mama Mboga in Kirinyaga, Kisumu, and all other areas and corners of this great nation. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Is the Honorable Susan Kiamba in the House? Susan? The Honorable Rachel Nyamai? No? Then I'll go for Madame Barto, followed by Honorable Kenan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also have my voice in the budget policy statement. And I want to congratulate the Liaison Committee for putting their heads together and coming up with a document which is going to serve the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, this policy statement covers all the institutions who submitted their statements and culminated to the compilation by the Liaison Committee. And Mr. Speaker, I hope that in this policy statement, which the end result will be the budget estimates for the 2025-2026 financial year, is going to transform society. I hope it captured the needs of every corner of Kenya, so that we should be able to see the executive carrying out their mandate appropriately, Parliament doing the same, and judiciary expediting cases. And Mr. Speaker, I hope it captured it was a need-based budgetary policy statement, so that we will be able to see our constituencies having electricity in entirety. For example, I represent the great people of Moiben constituency. And as at now, we are at 49% connectivity in electricity. I would wish that going forward, after the budget, we raise our connectivity to 90%. We want to see our roads getting elevated to tarmac, and accessibility in the entire country. The president made a pronouncement yesterday of dualing the Rironi to Mau Summit road, which caters for most regions in Kenya. We would wish that that road is done and with speed that it deserves, so that we don't have crisis when our schools are closing, our children are not able to move from one region to another. We would wish to see the stalled projects being completed within the shortest time possible. In my constituency, Mr. Speaker, I have like 3 dams which have been done since time immemorial. They are 10 years down the line. The contractor shows up on site, disappears. We have a case in point, a school of TVET, which was initiated by Honorable Professor Kamar. That is 15 years down the line. That project, Mr. Speaker, is still a pending project. how I wish that with this, with the passing of this budget policy statement and with the culmination of the main budget, let us have all the projects which are stalled. I was just giving a case of Moiben constituency because that is where I represent. But I know in the entire nation, we have so many other constituencies where they have such kind of projects. Our education system has just gone a transformation. We hope that we will not be going forward after the budget has been done. We will not have cases of our students in the streets, our teachers in the streets, our lecturers in the streets, our universities up in the streets, because all the needs which they have, all the resources which they require should have been adequately captured, and also jobs for our young people. I hope in this budget we are going to sort as much as possible the problems which we are facing as society, so that we can have a smooth life all the way in the entire Kenya and outside our borders. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kena. Did I see Honorable Kore raise his hand?
Mr. Speaker,
You don't have a card?
in the old days,
I'm assuming. Okay, then you'll be after him.
Mr. Speaker, in the old days, this budget policy statement used to be the most guarded secret document actually in the entire country. You remember the way it used to be treated. And that actually gave relevance to professional hoarders, professional illegal traders, and many other people. But luckily, courtesy of the current constitution, this budget policy statement now is a precursor to the main budget-making process. And the main budget-making process, Mr. Speaker, is a constitutional role of the Member of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, as we do this, and I look at the theme of this year, is consolidating gains under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda for inclusive green growth. And the word I want to use is inclusive green growth. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the face of Kenya, there are regions that have been neglected over the years. There are regions that have been stigmatized. There are regions that have been bastardized, and you know it. There are regions that have been completely neglected. When will these regions get an opportunity to catch up with other regions of the Republic of Kenya, so that we have a society of equity, we have a society of equality, we have a society of the same norms in terms of economic development, in terms of appreciation of the dynamics of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we go through these documents, we must also look at the previous budgets. Were there fiscal disciplines? Were there public accountability? Were there prudent in expenditure? And Mr. Speaker, in all this, because we must also deal with the public perception, there must be equity, there must be fairness, there must be transparency, Mr. Speaker, so that the Kenyan public right now are pregnant with serious expectation with this particular budget, because the president has gone around to almost every region. Mr. Speaker, you know recently, His Excellency the President was in our region, and the kind of wish list that we presented, that wish list will only become a book phenomenon unless there's a budgetary provision. That's why for us who come from that region and all other regions that have been neglected over the years, we must look at this budget-making process critically so that we get a share of the national basket. If we don't do it, Mr. Speaker, then we will continue to be at the periphery, we'll continue to complain, and we'll continue also to raise the expectation of our voters without any meaningful development agenda. Mr. Speaker, I know there comes a time when there must be also, if you go back to the history of this country, Mr. Speaker, there are regions, it's a fact. These regions are what gave birth to the Republic of Kenya. There are regions where I come from, and you know where you also come from. I'm sure you have not seen, you have been a long-serving member of parliament. Where you come from, Dadaab and former Lagdera, I'm sure there's not even a kilometer of tarmac road.
Not in the Dadaab.
Not in Dadaab. You are retiring.
Yes.
You are now, what will be the legacy? I have served in Wajir West. I have served in Eldas. I'm yet to see, still struggling to have the first kilometer of a tarmac road in Eldas. These are realities that we must face. Somebody else has tarmacked every bit of his constituency and right now attempting to tarmac the kraals of the cows and the hens and everything else. Are we going to live in the same country? How will that child whose kettle bomber has been tarmacked, and that child who comes from where I represent, who lacks water, who lacks basic health facilities, who has never seen tarmac, the very first definition that comes to the mind of that child, school-going child, is what is tarmac. A tarmac is a black substance found in down Kenya. So you must cite that kid. Where is down Kenya? And what is the definitional picture of a tarmac road? These are realities that we must face. And I want all Kenyans here to support the president in his attempt to unite the republic, in his attempt to bring development, to take development to every part of the Republic of Kenya. And we want to say kudos, Honorable Ruto. That is what we needed 60 years ago. That is what we needed 50 years ago. That is what we needed 40 years ago. That is what we needed 30 years ago. That is what we needed yesterday. It is happening right now. You are thinking out of the box. Those who are criticizing you just want to limit you to the village.
Give him an additional 2 minutes. He's also talking for the DAP constituency.
Those who are criticizing the president want to hamper his thinking, Mr. Speaker. They want to limit his extent of creative imagination in order to serve the people of Kenya. And that's what fairness requires, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I remember during the time of the Grand Coalition, you were our Deputy Speaker. You remember one morning we had a visit to the late president, and we took a very serious wish list. Out of that wish list, the road from Isiolo to Marsabit, Moyale has now been tarmacked.
Yes.
It's my prayer and your prayer and the prayer of all of us that under this budget right now, the road from Garissa, Modogash, Wajir, Elwak, Mandera will be a reality, and that's what the president has promised. So for me, and the road from Garissa, Dadaab, all the way to Liboyo and Kismayo, and the road from Wajir, Moyale, all the way to Addis Ababa, Mr. Speaker. These are the realities that we expect. And for me, when I'll be looking at this budget, get ready. That will be my first entry point, so that whatever that has been promised is turned into a reality. Mr. Speaker, finally on this, I know the management of the National Resource Packet is a very difficult job. It's a very tasking job. So even those members of the Budget Committee, when you are being criticized, that informs the strengthening of the weaknesses that you have gone through. It's not a challenge. So the fact that the members were criticized, that's why we are politicians. So I want to assure you, this budget, taking into account the definition, taking into account the expectation, we will be there to critically look at it and ensure that there is value for every region and there is support for every part of the Republic of Kenya. I support this, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Kore.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. From the onset, I congratulate the Liaison Committee, and I also support the adoption of the report of the Liaison Committee on the 2025-2026 budget, BPS, budget policy statement report. Honorable Speaker, I will not belabor on what has already been said by my colleagues. I'll just concentrate on a few areas which I think is pertinent to me. Honorable Speaker, I think we need to do some soul searching on the question of how we do our budgeting, just from the budget policy statement all the way to the actual budget that we normally do annually. Honorable Speaker, there are areas which are always a problem. For example, we are having a crisis in the education sector. You know, the university funding model is running through some challenges. We are seeing unions from universities to secondary schools always threatening to go on strike because of the lack of funding for the comprehensive bargaining agreements. We have seen a lot of challenges in infrastructure, for example, in JSS. But every time we come up with a BPS and every time we come up with our budgets, we find these areas are not covered adequately. Even in our health sector, we are running through a lot of challenges. The question around SHA, one of the reasons why I'm told SHA is running through the problems it's running through, among many other problems, is the fact that not adequate funding is being provided for SHA. Honorable Speaker, I think we need to review on how we do our budgeting so that we look at some of these critical areas which are always a challenge to our people, especially in the education sector and the health sector, so that we can adequately resource these areas and actually take care of them. Honorable Speaker, electricity, particularly from the region where I come from, is a major thing. As we speak, almost 60% of Mandera County is in darkness because of lack of electricity. The diesel-generated power is no longer sustainable, and it is giving a lot of problems to the people in our region. The biggest town in my constituency, for example, Elwak, where I represent, has been without electricity for the last 6 months. And as we go through Ramadan, there are a lot of challenges for electricity in that area. And yet we are unable to provide electricity for these areas. Honorable Speaker, one area I will also zero in on is the area around low-cost boarding schools. Picture this, Honorable Speaker. We have been giving low-cost boarding schools 400 million per year since 2003. And this is supposed to be for 411,000 students. That is 5 shillings per student per day for 180 days for school calendar year. That is supposed to cover breakfast, dinner, salaries for staff and support staff, and also beddings and infrastructure like constructing the boarding facilities for those schools. Honorable Speaker, this is very unfortunate because imagine 400 million for low-cost boarding schools since 2003. This is unfortunate, where actually in our prisons, and I take no offense in mentioning this, where in our prisoners are given 105 shillings per day for their meals. But for boarding schools, for low-cost boarding schools, our students are only budgeted for 5 shillings per day for 180 calendar days. So, Honorable Speaker, these are some of the areas that we need to look at. And given the theme and the mood in the country right now, as spearheaded by His Excellency President William Ruto, the question around equity, equality, and inclusivity should be reflected in all our processes of budget policy statement and also our main budgets. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Kipchumba from Marakwet.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving an opportunity to contribute on the budget policy statements. Honorable Speaker, that budget policy statement gives us an opportunity as a country to lay our framework for development in this country. Honorable Speaker, we need as a country to get our priorities right. And there are sections of this country, Honorable Speaker, that have been neglected for quite a long period of time. Honorable Speaker, development in this country, if you look closely, is that this country developed along the railway line. If you look from all the way from Mombasa to where the railway line ended, that is where development in this country was focused, because goods are transported along that line, and that is where our development as a country was focused. Honorable Speaker, the other day I was in Wajir, and I was also in Turkana County. And I've said here for the record that for this country to develop, we need equality. And that is why it offends some of us when, for example, legislation like the Equalization Fund, a law that was meant and was passed in our constitution by the people of this republic to bring equality all across the country and to bring areas that were marginalized historically to the same level to where other areas are in this country, a formula was introduced that law was also meant to benefit areas that were not originally meant to benefit under that equalization fund. So, Honorable Speaker, even as we look at this budget policy statement, and I've said here for the record, if you look at a country like Turkana, I say Turkana, for example, Honorable Speaker, fits into three countries. I mean, Turkana 3 countries can fit into Turkana. That is Burundi, Djibouti, and Rwanda. The 3 countries combined is 76,000 kilometers square. Turkana County alone is 77,000 kilometers square. So, Honorable Speaker, even as we look at this budget policy statement, we must look at the development of Kenya as a whole. And I want to thank the President. The other time he was in northeastern Kenya, I talked to my friend here, Honorable Haro. I was asking him what is the percentage of connectivity in terms of electricity in northeastern Kenya. He told me it's about 15% or less. In Elgeyo Marakwet County, the average connectivity is around 25%. Honorable Speaker, if you ask another county in this country, they have 89 to 98% electricity connectivity. Honorable Speaker, that is an inequality that we must address as a country so that we develop uniformly. It is unfortunate that other counties are 100 years ahead of other counties. Until when will we be able to equalize? So the others there, we saw the president was on Northeastern. And he promised in terms of even the national grid, we need to take it to part of Northeastern, to be taken to Turkana County, so that Kenya is served equally. Honorable Speaker, if you look at those areas that I've mentioned, those are very productive areas in this country. If we focus on putting the right resources, establishing irrigation schemes in those areas, then, Honorable Speaker, I have no doubt that this country will prosper. If you look at a country like Egypt, it depends on River Nile to feed these people. Here we have Lake Baringo, we have Lake Turkana. Honorable Speaker, we have Lake Turkana, and the people of Turkana are suffering from anger, and that lake has not been properly used so that irrigation is done in that part of the country. Honorable Speaker, even as we unite the country politically, we must also unite our country in terms of development so that everybody gets an equal share of development in this country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Fair enough, the chair is tempted to stomp. Chair, for one moment, feels like he should have been on the other side so that I can stomp my feet, but I can't do it from where I am. Thank you, Honorable Kipchumba. The Honorable Dick Maundu. Dick. Honorable Dick Maungu, sorry.
That is the correct pronunciation.
Yeah, Maungu.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, allow me to join my colleagues in also adding my voice to this important subject on the budget policy statement. Chair, budget policy statement is an important framework within which we as a country expect to operate our budget for the financial year 25-26. And Chair, the budget stipulates and sets out clear ceilings, clear allocations to various sectors. And it's my prayer, Madam Chair, that this policy statement will move in to address the inequalities we have suffered as a country. Chair, Madam Speaker, where I come from, people may imagine that Luanda constituency is one of the best doing constituencies because it is an urban area. But unlike that, Chair, Mr. Speaker, electricity connectivity is at 1%. We have very many stalled projects, including roads that began more than 10 years ago, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is my prayer that this statement will address the historical injustices we have seen in terms of resource allocation. It's my prayer that this statement will move into to bring in equity and equitable distribution of resources. Because we have a country that is so unequal. We have a country where other regions are doing pretty well, other regions are struggling, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, over the years, we've had budgets tabled in this House, policy statements tabled in this House, but they move in towards specific areas. We have constituencies in this country whose electricity connection is over 90%. We have others who actually survive at less than 15% or thereabout, Mr. Speaker, including mine, where we have around 31%. It is therefore my prayer and desire that going forward, as we discuss the budget policy statement, as we discuss the fiscal allocations in this budget, Mr. Speaker, we should be able to ensure there's prudent allocation of resources, there's accountability, and transparent resource allocation. This will bring about equity. This will bring about inclusion and feeling included. This will bring about people feeling that indeed this country is for all of us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have a number of stalled projects in this country. I happen to suffer one or two. We have projects that began years ago, yet we continue to see new projects being undertaken, new roads being constructed, yet we still have pending projects that began decades ago, Mr. Speaker, that ought to be completed before we can actually begin others. Last year, we had several strikes in the area of education. Lecturers on the streets, students in the universities on the streets. Our young boys and girls in high school did not receive their capitation. All was because we had allocations that never reached their schools, Mr. Speaker. It's my prayer that as we talk about fiscal accountability, capitation to schools must actually be reflected in the schools, Mr. Speaker, so that our kids who are under the free day secondary program can be able to enjoy learning. It is my prayer, Mr. Speaker, that capitation for university students, right now we have a case in court whereby the new funding model has been stopped. Our kids who are in universities continue to suffer. It's my prayer that through this budget policy statement, that we may have maximum allocation to these universities and our schools so that our kids may enjoy being in school, Mr. Speaker. I therefore say thank you to the committee that came around with this and hope that even as we come to the budget statements, it shall actually be able to capture the aspirations of Kenyans and ensure there's equity and equitable distribution of resources. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, before the Honorable Korere takes the floor, I want to recognize the presence and welcome the students from Greenview School, Karasarani, Nairobi. Welcome. They are in the speakers, they're in the public gallery. Do we have an MP from Nairobi who is going to give I can proceed, Mheshimiwa. Yeah. Yeah, they're still missing. Okay, get closer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, it's a privilege to grant me this opportunity to talk to our young ones. Sometimes, Mr. Speaker, when we are in the village, we always have meetings with women, the elderly, and they tell us, honorable members, when you get an opportunity, tell our young kids to go slow on alcohol, even love affairs. Our children, they receive a lot of love letters, and it distracts them from their education. The children should be actually the roses to their parents. They should come slow on drugs. They come slow on absconding their duties, both at home and at school. And you should know that cooking, washing utensils, they are not gender roles, but they are basic skills that help them in growing. So our children know that we love you very much. Please work hard. It is a common saying that you are told, and always aim high. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I also want to recognize the presence of Roysambu Junior School from Roysambu constituency, Nairobi. Welcome, very much welcome. And I'll ask the Honorable Owembaya to say a word of encouragement to the students from Roysambu Junior School who are in the public gallery. You are a leader in the House, so.
Thank you, Honorable.
You represent the country, you don't represent just your constituency.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I welcome the students from Roysambu, I want to say...
This side, look at this side.
You're welcome to the National Assembly. This is the guest house where policy and certain rules and statutes are passed. But above all, I want to encourage you. You know, I used to be a student at Kenyatta University many years ago. And that was how I associated myself to Roysambu. And Roysambu was a small growing town then, in the early 90s. I know a lot of them, even their parents had not met. But then I want to encourage you, as you pursue your education, always have a vision, but that vision must always have a focus. If you have a vision without a focus, you may not achieve much. So I want to ask the students that are visiting Parliament today, please focus on your studies, have ambition, plan to succeed, and plan to emulate great minds of men and women in this country. I wish you well, desist from deviant behavior, but walk on the straight path, just like your teachers tell you, so that you can become successful in life. Otherwise, welcome to observe the proceedings of the 13th Parliament, and welcome to the National Assembly. Thank you.
Finally, in recognizing students, I also want to recognize the presence in the Speaker's Gallery of the students from Loreto High School. Welcome to this institution. It's welcome to this institution called Parliament, the National Assembly. And I will ask the honorable member, the lady honorable member sitting next to Martha Karua, to give your fellow ladies the words of encouragement, the fellow girls. Girls.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to welcome the great students of my dream school. If I was to be younger, I would want to go to Loreto. I want to encourage the girls that you're in the best place. This is Parliament in person, where you normally do your history and 3 arms of government. This is one of those arms of government. We want to wish you the very best, that you work hard, that you can be anything in this world that you ever want to be, and you have the energy, you have the opportunity, and you have the strength. Please go for it, and you will surely get it.
What's your point of order, Honorable Yamai?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Please very kindly allow me to also welcome the students.
Fair enough. It's not a point of order, but I'll allow you to proceed. Honorable, you're a senior member of this House and indeed a role model for most of the girls in the country, or all the girls in the country, or ladies. So proceed and give these ladies words of encouragement.
Thank you for your kindness, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I welcome these students from Loreto, it's a wonderful school. It is a school where so many young people would love to go to, and it is a school where they can excel, and go all the way to the place where they would like to go. So we welcome you. As I say that Honorable Speaker, I would like to say that the Honorable Mother Wangari is the one who is seated to the member who welcomed the students from Loreto. And you said Mother Karua. Mother Karua is a very nice person in this country also, in her own way, But Honorable Speaker, we do not have Mother Karua in the House. I think you meant the member.
I meant Martha
Wangari, yes.
Mother
Wangari.
Indeed, yes.
Member, third-term member of Parliament, who has really shown that a woman can be nominated in this House for the first time through affirmative action and go all the way, be elected, and be elected again. So these students from Loreto, you can be what you want to be. Just follow Mother Wangari. And then later, you can also think of Mother Karua, the one who is being mentioned by the Speaker.
I think I've had in my psyche Martha Karua for far too long, because we came to Parliament on the same day in 1992. But nonetheless, I recognize and respect very much the indomitable lady Martha Wangari. Please do say a word of also encouragement yourself too.
Thank you very much.
And I want you to do this because we also have Father Makewa High School from Yatta, and the Ngira Umoja Secondary School from Maragua in the Speaker's Gallery, in the public gallery. So you address them both, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I don't mind you comparing me with Honorable Martha Karua, who is my senior, and also share the 2 names, Martha Wangari. But more importantly, thank you for the clarification. We share the names, not the same person, but walking in the footsteps to serve as many years as we can in this House. Mr. Speaker, allow me to recognize the students as they are coming in. And I had said earlier, Mr. Speaker, it's a very busy day. If you go outside here, there are very many schools queuing to come in. So I would want to encourage the girls and indeed the boys, Mr. Speaker, because a balanced society has to have both gender, so that we are able to make a balanced community, and encourage them that they can learn as much positive as they can from this house to ensure that it contributes to their future. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Korere. Sarah, proceed and contribute on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to add my voice on the budget policy statement.
Aye.
And Mr. Speaker, indeed, a lot of people have spoken into the inequality in this country. And Mr. Speaker, we really have to amplify our voices on the same. Mr. Speaker, I say so because I honestly want to believe that the budget policy statement before us is going to address the inequalities that has been witnessed in this country since time immemorial. Mr. Speaker, you know, equity and inequality are two different things. And Mr. Speaker, when we come to this parliament and we are told that money is allocated equally to all constituencies, when we know very well that we are not equal. Mr. Speaker, if you come to Laikipia today, Laikipia County in general is 9,600 square kilometers. Laikipia North as a constituency is 5,600 square kilometers. It is bigger than Laikipia West and East combined. But when you look at the 22%, the monies on the roads, we are allocated exactly the same monies. With a constituency, for example, Mr. Speaker, in central Kenya, say Murang'a, for example, Kiambu, where the member of parliament can wake up one day and go around the whole constituency before midday and come to attend sessions in this parliament. Mr. Speaker, you wonder where the equity is. It is very, very unequal. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, in this era, in the 21st century, in northern Kenya, in Laikipia North, while people are talking of stock exchange, we are still talking of stock theft. Why? Because, Mr. Speaker, when the monies for low-cost boarding is being reduced, and when government officials who have no idea what children in northern Kenya go through to go to school, just sit down and make a statement, a blanket statement, that they are going to abolish boarding schools, including in northern Kenya, it is pathetic. Honorable Speaker, you know, you cannot budget monies, more monies to feed prisoners and reduce monies to feed our school-going children. Mr. Speaker, the other thing is, when you look at the wastage, even the wastage in government offices is budgeted for. So I seriously hope and I pray that this budget statement is going to address the wastage. Honorable Speaker, when in this era, some people are still depending on relief food. You know, people going queuing, you know, to receive 1 kilo of rice, 3 kilos of rice and a kilo of beans, so that they can eat today while God takes care of tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, it is demeaning. And you know, you get well-wishers, you even get members of this parliament going to donate food and posing for pictures with the very poor people. You flash these pictures in the Facebook and in WhatsApp, it is demeaning to those people. And Mr. Speaker, this country is in a position to make sure that the agriculture sector, they pump money into production. You know, livestock keeping is not backward, but for a very long time, livestock keeping has not been looked at as an economic way of life. That's something that can uplift the economies of this country. And Mr. Speaker, when I look at the budget for livestock, I just see a lot of reduction. Mr. Speaker, beef industry is $1 billion industry. We know that Kenyans love nyama choma. Nyama choma don't grow on trees. They are got from cows, goats, and sheep. So, Mr. Speaker, I truly want to believe that this budget policy statement is going to address that. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the stalled projects. We are seeing new projects coming up. When you go, for example, in...
Can you give an additional 1 minute, 2 minutes, 2 minutes actually to Madam Korere?
Thank you, Speaker. Doldol headquarter, which is supposed to be the sub-county headquarter for Laikipia North. Since independence to date, there is no single tarmac road in that constituency. The only road that was launched in 2021 is stalled, Mr. Speaker. So I truly believe we are not going to see a round of new projects while we still have old projects like the Doldol Nanyuki Road, the Rumruti Nanyuki Road, and finally, Mr. Speaker, we saw our intern doctors on the streets. We know we need these intern doctors. We need doctors in this country. Me and you don't have to fly to India, to London to get attended to, because we have people in this country who can attend to us. We'd rather start putting our priorities right, not upside down. Honorable Speaker, I want to believe with the stewardship of Honorable, His Excellency, the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, I believe he's one person who understands what Kenyans are going through, and I want to believe under his leadership, we are going to address especially the inequality where some Kenyans have become more equal than others. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Parashina, the MP for Kajiado South, followed by the Honorable Mary Ann.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also stand to first of all support the report on the budget policy statement for the financial year 2025-2026. And I want to appreciate work done by the Liaison Committee. This report really covered a lot of areas that are very important and instrumental in this country. Mr. Speaker, as I also support the report, it's good to emphasize something more on the county allocation that was given 4 or 5 billion. And I want to say that the general picture, or what are the framers of the new Constitution 2010 thought when they introduced the issue of county, is that development goes across the country. I don't want to say that in terms of allocation, things are happening. But again, when you go to the counties, sometimes we feel we are let down because the Republic and our people are not getting the real services that been of the money which has been allocated in this house, Mr. Speaker. And when I saw the work which has been done, if counties can able to take the amount and understand that the money is supposed to help our people develop and help our people get services, I think as a country we are heading somewhere. Specifically, I also want to mention about county aggregation industrial park. And then the main issue was the value chain, that every county is able to produce or concentrate in a certain area. For example, Kajiado, maybe you can talk about leather or milk products or even tomatoes, because also we have them, another part of the country. But I think the pace in which the county aggregation industrial parks have been done, totally we might not be able to achieve in this first year, in our first term of 5-year period, because up to now you see maybe 19 which has been done or which are in the plan. But we are really not seeing the speed at which the work is being, the process of making those small industries being done. Specifically, there is something that has come out this year, the KENAS, Kenya Aggregation Services, whereby we need to accredit our products. So it may be in UAE, in Europe, in America, and we could not be able to do much because we never had an accreditation body recognized internationally. But now, the money that has been allocated to Kenas is a plus to us. And I think if there's something this parliament has done justice to our country in terms of the business people, or where do we want to see our country in 5 years to come, is bringing now Kenas. So you see there have been a lot of complaints about products that are being checked by KEBS. But now even KEBS themselves are also having another body which is going to oversee them. And that is a plus to the report that we are debating today. When you go to issue of environment, carbon credit, resource mobilization framework that has been proposed, Mr. Speaker, I'm having a feeling that we need to check that one. Clearly, when we want to do tax against carbon credits, and the market totally is international, we might in a certain time, maybe in some years to come, and investors might choose to go other places, maybe even Paraguay or other countries, Gabon, that they are not really issue of taxes in the carbon. So I need to see how the framework is going to work out. Mr. Speaker, I come from ASAL areas. That is Kajiado, sorry, I just want an next 1 minute to just, I'm concluding here, Mr. Speaker, sir. There's this issue of merger. The cabinet proposed merger, and I see in the report that the Intergovernmental Technical Committee is supposed to bring a report, because I feel
give him an additional minute, 1 more minute, please.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker.
Wrap up here.
As Madam Sarah Korel, Mheshimiwa Sarah Korel has spoken about issue of other areas that can be marginalized or left behind. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that it has been captured here. There is a proposal of merging up the ASALs, or those parastatals that fall under ASALs area, and the northern corridor. And Mr. Speaker, if there are a lot of projects that we have that are stalled already, for example, the tomato factory that is being done by NCDA in Kajiado South, that project needs allocation of 200 million plus for it to get to kickstart, and which can provide employment to our youth. But now it has been proposed, it is in the proposal that that also NCDA could be merged up. Mr. Speaker, as members who come from the ASAL area, we feel that the time that report will come, we'll be allowed to debate keenly. Because the moment they get ASAL from our area, we will lack water, we will lack other facilities that are very instrumental to our areas. And I plead that let the House consider the report with the condition that once the report is going to be tabled by Intergovernmental Technical Committee, then we might request that this ASAL cannot be cancelled now. If it will be cancelled, let it come after 2027. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Marianne Keitani.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to support the budget policy statement. The 2025-2026 budget policy statement has laid and has read on the floor. And the reason for this is because the budget that has been approved with a ceiling of about 2.4 billion at the executive will go a long way in helping to achieve a lot of the development agenda that we have looked for in this country. The Constitution of Kenya talks about equity and equitable distribution of resources. And in this budget policy statement, we would like to see equitable distribution of resources like roads, areas where I come from like Aldai and Nandi, which has not been seeing a lot of development in roads, we should be able to get some. And similar to places like where the president was the other day, that is Northeastern, they should be able to get also equitable resources of redistribution of resources like roads, water, and all those other resources to be the same as any other part of this country. And in this budget policy statement, Honorable Speaker,
I know that we've put a lot of development in terms of creation of businesses, or creation of businesses in this country, and getting a good environment for our businesses to thrive. A case in point and an example is that in the counties, we have actually put money for county aggregation and industrial parks that will spur economic growth, because it will allow the youth, the young people, and the people in the communities to be able to grow business and be able to develop businesses in environments that are already pre-done under the county aggregation and industrial parks. Also, the special economic zones, the EPZs, those are the areas that we hope to see a lot of development or a lot of infrastructure development going in there, so that investors who are coming into this country, as well as our own local investors, have a nice leveraging environment to be able to grow their businesses. Because we find that a lot of people who want to start businesses find a very uphill task trying to put up a warehouse, to put up electricity, to put up all those infrastructural requirements, and that becomes it becomes a negative, because they may not be able to have those resources. But if we are able to create parks that are plug and play, these investors come in and start doing direct investments, then we find even the unemployment that we are talking about from our youth becomes an easy and becomes a better place where this youth can get employed. So the cost of unemployment, we hope in this budget policy statement 25-26, we'll see a lot of development and a lot of resources put in places where our youth will get employment. I know the president has been moving around when he's doing opening projects in various parts of the country. He's right now in Nairobi, and in any of these areas, there are many programs that he raises and says that they should be done. I think in the budget policy statement that we have read for 25-26, if a lot of those things are put in that statement, we expect that this country will become not only a middle income earner, but it will actually grow threefold to become one of the top tier in Africa and compete with the other developed countries in the world. The proposal that we have is to have our GDP growth be at 15% by 2028. And with this policy statement that we have, we expect that particular growth to go in that direction, because a lot of the programs that are being proposed in the budget policy statement will go a long way in helping this country achieve the kind of targeted areas. And especially in those particular parts of this country, because we are saying that the resource allocation become equitable. So in those areas where the resources have not been over time, have not been equitably given to them, if this particular statement considers those particular areas, you can imagine the kind of growth that this country will be looking up to. And remember, this is the year that we really must see a lot of development in this country, because we are approaching an election year, and many times during an election year, very little development happens. So we have an opportunity as a country, as we pass this budget policy statement, to ensure that the resources have actually been equitably distributed, and we ensure that development has actually happened within our country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I say support.
The Majority Leader, followed by Agnes Pareyo and Ivo Barra.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So rise to support passage of this budget policy statement for the financial year 2025, 2026, and the medium term. Honorable Speaker, this BPS comes at a time when our economy is recovering from what was in 2022 a very dilapidated economy. You remember, Honorable Speaker, this administration came into office in 2022 when our inflation rates were very high, the exchange rates were very high, and today, including the exchange rates, Honorable Speaker, today we are at a position where now the inflation rate is at an average of about 3.5 in 2025 February, as opposed to the 9.6% that was there in 2022 October when this administration came into place. And this has not been easy to achieve, but it has been a result of a lot of concerted effort to reduce the cost of commodities, especially food items, and the massive investment that has been done in the agricultural sector has indeed paid off for our country. And today, we are not only food secure, but this food security has also ensured that our inflation rates, our exchange rates has also stabilized, and even our interest rates have begun coming down, and you've seen the rush that is there among us commercial banks to reduce on the interest rates. Mr. Speaker, you'll see that our 91-day treasury bills have declined from 15.7% in December of 2023 to the current rate of about 9.6% in February of this year. Again, our exchange rates, as I mentioned, from a high of 160, 159 about a year ago to an average now of 128 to 130 shillings. And if you look at those who buy the dollar, we'll see in the last 1 month, it has almost stabilized about 128 to 129. Honorable Speaker, this year's BPS, or Budget Policy Statement, basically highlights the progress that we have made in the implementation of the BITA strategy, or the bottom-up economic transformation agenda that was anchored on the 4th medium-term plan of our Vision 2030. And that tells you, Honorable Speaker, that we continue being consistent in pursuit of the Vision 2030 and ensuring that all our medium-term plans fit into the bigger goal and vision of 2030. Honorable Speaker, the National Treasury, when they submitted this budget policy statement this year, members will note, and I believe, even as I thank our Deputy Speaker for able leadership of the Liaison Committee and the entire Liaison Committee that has considered this BPS together with our departmental committees, they will appreciate that this BPS has been prepared in the backdrop of an economy that is rising, an economy that is recovering steadily and stabilizing. And indeed, we can now proudly say that our economy has stabilized. The debt challenge that we had is also being addressed very well, and I'm happy that even this budget policy statement has laid very good or special emphasis on fiscal consolidation to reduce our public debt vulnerabilities, while providing fiscal space to deliver on essential goods and services, especially in ensuring that we have adequate funds to roll out the development agenda that we have promised the people of Kenya. And I am happy that even as we have stabilized our economy, we are also opening up the fiscal space to be able to roll out development programs. And I must also use this opportunity to thank and recognize the efforts I have seen even from the Office of the Comptroller of Budget. Honorable Speaker, recently when we said that there are issues in the Comptroller of Budget's office in terms of accountability, when they do well, we also recognize, and I must recognize the work that I saw her roll out yesterday in terms of establishing a framework on approval processes that will ensure counties and county governments are able to access money, and the approval process is seamless. And it is clear the criteria on which approvals are made from that office, so that governors and county government officers are not extorted by officers in that office, because it is a fact of life that that extortion has been going on. But I am glad I saw yesterday that action has been taken following those calls that we made in this House, Honorable Speaker, and also in ensuring that there's a criteria set in terms of approval, even for development work, so that we do not spend all our money on recurrent expenditure, both in the county level of government and also in the national government, Honorable Speaker. And I'm sure even towards the end of this week, without anticipating debate, even as we work on the Division of Revenue Bill that will be coming for first reading, hopefully before we commence on the short recess, these are some of the issues even our county governments will look into. Honorable Speaker, as I said, the efforts to bring down our public debt are quite evident, and people will bear me witness that our public debt is on a downward path that is consistent with our debt anchor as passed by this House and our colleagues in the Senate. I've said this, Honorable Speaker, that this BPS is anchored on those two issues of fiscal consolidation and proper management of our debt vulnerability. And Honorable Speaker, on tax measures, Honorable Speaker, part of that fiscal consolidation efforts, as we reduce our public expenditure, Honorable Speaker, we also look at boosting our revenues. And I'm happy that this budget policy statement speaks to measures towards enhancing our revenues. And I'm happy that this has been brought to us as a combination of tax administrative matters, not just increment of taxes, tax policy reforms that include strengthening our tax administration to enhance compliance in order to expand our tax base, but also more importantly, to reduce our tax expenditures, Honorable Speaker. And in reduction of tax expenditures, Honorable Speaker, members will remember even last year's finance bill had very good measures on reducing tax expenditure. Very good measures. Because tax expenditure, Honorable Speaker, at the end of the day benefits more of business people than the consumer. And especially in the area of value-added taxation. Because that is the area that we are most vulnerable in terms of high tax expenditures. Because you find so many exemptions on VAT and other taxes that ought to benefit consumers but end up only benefiting the traders and business community. And Honorable Speaker, I am glad that the National Treasury has seen the need to ensure that we minimize on tax expenditures while also leveraging on technology. And I must speak to this, Honorable Speaker, because we have been told over the years we will leverage on technology to enhance revenue mobilization and revenue collection, but we never see it coming. I know and I'm aware the Kenya Revenue Authority is working on a robust program to relook at their systems, right from their customs system, their income tax systems, Honorable Speaker, and I do hope that it will not just be another year of talk, and endless talk, that we will see the actualization of these measures to leverage on technology, revolutionize our tax processes, seal loopholes where revenue leaks out of the system, and generally enhance efficiency through the use of technology, both in our MDAs and also leverage on technology, even for taxpayers to make it much easier for taxpayers to settle their tax bills and their tax arrears, and also be able to communicate more effectively with the revenue officers and the revenue systems at KRA. And Honorable Speaker, I say that because there are also measures, and I spoke to it last week, because I see, again, in this budget policy statement, in terms of strengthening our expenditure control and improving efficiency and effectiveness in public spending, the National Treasury is telling us that they will also ensure that they leverage on technology, on e-procurement, to have an end-to-end e-procurement system to maximize the value for money and increase transparency in procurement. Honorable Speaker, these are very good semantics. And I reminded the National Treasury last week that none other than the President, in his State of the Nation address towards the end of last year, committed before this House that he has directed the National Treasury to ensure that e-procurement is a reality before the end of the first quarter. Let me remind CS John Buddy and PS Kipto and those who are in charge of the National Treasury. We have less than 45 days to the end of the first quarter. By the time they bring the annual estimates, we want a report on the actualization of that directive by the President on e-procurement, because we cannot talk about efficient procurement, efficient use of public resources in terms of public expenditure if we are not leveraging on technology, Honorable Speaker. And I know there is immense resistance in government on e-procurement, but it must be done because it is the right thing to do for the country. It may not be popular with our procurement officers in the public sector, Honorable Speaker. It may not be popular with many business people who rig the system to get tenders that they do not deserve or for amounts that do not give value for money. But it is the right thing to do for the country, and we must insist as a House, and that's why I have taken liberty, Honorable Speaker, to remind the National Treasury that as they bring their annual estimates later next month, they must also give us a report on the status of implementation of e-procurement. Honorable Speaker, lastly, in conclusion, let me urge the House now that we have concluded with elections of some of the departmental committees that had the election this morning, including the Budget and Appropriations Committee, as I congratulate the Honorable Atandi and the Honorable Robert Pukose, I want to urge them and all members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, adhere to what we said yesterday. Do your work in the best interest of the country and to ensure there is equitable share of resources across the country and across all our counties, and also to ensure that the budget ceilings as approved in this BPS process are adhered to by all MDAs.
The Honorable Pareyo Agnes, followed by the Honorable Obara Eve.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the liaison report on the budget policy statement. I support this statement with the hope that it will address issues that are affecting our constituencies. Because at the end of it all, it is the constituencies or what they benefit will matter. And I say so, Mr. Speaker, because I see that in terms of equitable distribution of resources, we are not all equal. I look at my constituency, where I come from, we still have problems with the roads. Our roads are unpassable. And I hope that this statement will address issues affecting roads in my constituency. My constituency, we produce wheat, and every time that we harvest wheat, there is always a problem of brokers coming in between, importing wheat, and therefore we don't get market for our wheat. And this is what our people expect to develop their families and take their children to school. And I hope that because of the roads that we have, and we have no dryers that they can take the wheat, so we are always on a loss. And every year we argue, every year we have a problem with the government because we have no market for our wheat. And I expect the statement to look into the roads, look into electricity connectivity, because we all need what other Kenyans have. We have no electricity, we have no clean water, we still drink or take water that is not fit for human consumption. And I support this report again because I think it will look into injustices that happen to other constituencies, because we are not all equal. There are people with tarmac roads, and when I stand there, we have no single tarmac road in Narok North. That is the constituency I come from. And that is where we get wheat, that is where we get potatoes, that's where we feed Nairobi. Yet, when it rains like yesterday, I was receiving calls from everybody with where they expect me to do the roads for them. But when I look at the resources, they are not there. So I want to ask the government to look to constituencies or those areas that are not developed, because we are not all equal. With those few remarks, I want to support the statement with a hope that we will see equitable distribution of resources. Okay. We do also have a NDINDI, a National Cereal Board, where these people are supposed to take their wheat when it is raining. We have no dryers there. I still want to remind the government that we also need dryers for our people to avoid their wheat being destroyed in their farms.
Okay, Honorable Eva Bara,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, because I wanted to say something on the boarding schools, because I don't support boarding schools.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed, Honorable Eva Bara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also support the passage of this budget statement. Mr. Speaker, I had actually put up my hand at that time. I wanted to welcome, just before I get into the budget statement, I wanted to welcome the girls from Loreto High School. Mr. Speaker, that is actually my school.
Oh.
I'm an old girl of Loreto Limuru, molded to who I am today by Sister Mary Owens. Mr. Speaker, we are two in this house who are old girls of Loreto, myself and Rosa Buyu, for the information. So Loreto girls, thank you very much for coming, and I want to say that for Loreto, the sky has always been the lower limit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As I get to the policy statement, Mr. Speaker, my focus is on the issues of concern that have been raised in this report. If you look at the various departments, there are critical issues that have been raised that should have been addressed many months or many years back. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the Department of Education, there's been a back and forth on the issues of funding.
You have just 2 minutes before I call upon the mover to reply because of time constraints, but proceed.
On issues of the new funding model, Mr. Speaker, I don't have to repeat what has been said about the challenges that our students have with this new funding model. And it is raised here, and I'm happy that it has come up, and the department given a deadline of 30th June to make sure that this matter is sorted. 2, Mr. Speaker, is on the issues of TVET, with a clear guideline to stop the confusion that we see when it comes to matters of promotion, deployment. These issues are critical issues that affect the department, and this deadline must be honored, Mr. Speaker. And not only that, in other departments as well. You can see that deadlines have been given, but we must focus on these deadlines to make sure that we hold the departments accountable to do the things that they're supposed to do so that the resources are equitably distributed amongst Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Okay.
For the time that you have given me, I would have said much that have been raised, but given time, I will discuss it at another time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. The Honorable DS, I presume you are initially laying on the table the supplementary estimates. And then after that, you will have to reply. I mean,
Honorable Speaker.
And give notice of motion as well, please.
Yes.
Yeah, proceed.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Wednesday, 12 March 2025. This is the report of the Liaison Committee on its consideration of the second supplementary estimates for the financial year 2024-2025 and a compendium of departmental committee reports on their consideration of the supplementary estimates. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah. Notice. Go ahead and give the notice.
Honorable Speaker, I also beg to give a notice of motion on the consideration of the second supplementary estimates for the financial year 2024-2025, that this House adopts the report of the Liaison Committee on its consideration of the second supplementary estimates for the financial year 2024-2025, laid on the table of this House on Wednesday, 12 March 2025, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution and Section 39 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 and Standing Order 239. That 1, approves the supplementary estimates 2 for the financial year 2024-2025 as indicated in the schedules to the report. And 2, resolves that the schedules form the basis of the introduction of the Supplementary Appropriations Bill 2025. And 3, orders that the Speaker do now leave the chair to facilitate the consideration of the budget estimates with respect of each vote and program in the Committee of Supply as contemplated under Standing Order 240. That is consideration of the supplementary estimates in the Committee of Supply. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable DS, Deputy Speaker, now you reply. The mover for the budget policy statement has to reply now.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity to reply. And even as I I beg to reply, I wish to thank all the members of the Liaison Committee for the hard work that they put in ensuring that we did complete this process. And secondly, I also wish to thank the members who have supported every aspect of the motion, and also for the commitment that they have made is ensuring that this particular budget is properly implemented. And also, lastly, I would like to congratulate the new chairperson of the Budget Committee, Honorable Atandi, and also to welcome the new budget committee, the incoming budget committee, and then I wish to request them to ensure that they adhere to the ceilings as set out in the BPS and also in the supplementary budget too. And with that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to reply.
Members, we have 2 minutes to go to the conclusion of the morning session. And for the convenience of the House, I will now adjourn the House. And the question on the budget policy statement will be put in the afternoon. Honorable members, please rise. Honorable members, the time being 12:59 p.m., this House stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, the 12th of March, 2025, at 2:30 p.m.